In the remote village of Umuofia, where traditions run as deep as the roots of ancient Iroko trees, there lives a blind man named Okechukwu. Since birth, his world had been one of darkness, yet his other senses had sharpened to compensate for his lack of sight. His keen hearing could detect the slightest rustle of leaves, and his fingers were skilled at weaving baskets, though this craft barely provided enough to survive. In the same village lived Uzochukwu, a woman whose legs had never carried her weight since childhood. She moved about on her hands in a wooden board, dragging herself from place to place with remarkable strength in her arms. Though many pitied her, few knew of her sharp mind and resourceful nature. Their marriage was not one of romantic love, but of practical necessity. The villagers whispered among themselves, some mockingly calling it a union of misfortunes. Yet together, Okechukwu and Uzochukwu found they could accomplish what neither could alone. He became her legs, carrying her on his back when needed, while she became his eyes, directing his steps through her clear vision and keen observation. When the rains failed for 2 consecutive seasons, famine gripped Umuofia with merciless hands. The once fertile soil cracked under the relentless sun, and the village's food stores dwindled rapidly. Children cried themselves to sleep with empty stomachs, and the elderly grew weaker by the day. Even the wealthy began to feel the pinch of hunger. The king's garden and those of the 20 council elders remained green and abundant, protected by strict laws and daily watering from the village stream. These gardens became a testament to the inequality that existed in Umuofia, as common villagers watched their own crops wither and die, while the privileged few maintained their private food sources. One night, as Okechukwu and Uzochukwu lay on their thin sleeping mat, listening to their stomachs growl, Uzochukwu whispered a dangerous proposal. "My husband," she said, "I can see the ripened yams in the king's garden from our window. You have the strength to carry both me and whatever we might gather." Okechukwu remained silent for a long moment before responding, "But the punishment for theft is severe, and the gods themselves watch over the royal gardens." "The gods also watch as our people starve," Uzochukwu. "Besides, who would suspect a blind man and his lame wife?" That night, they devised their plan. Okechukwu would carry Uzochukwu on his back to the gardens. With her keen eyesight, she could direct him to the richest harvest, and with his strength, they could carry away enough food to survive. Their first venture into the king's garden was terrifying. Under the cover of darkness, Okechukwu carried his wife on his back, following her whispered directions. Her eyes pierced the darkness while his trained ears detected any approach of the guards. Together, they harvested yams, cassava, and vegetables, taking only what they needed to survive. As the famine worsened, they expanded their activities to the gardens of the council elders. Each night was a careful operation, Uzochukwu watching and directing, Okechukwu listening and carrying. They shared their bounty discreetly with the most desperate families in their compound, earning silent gratitude and protection from their neighbors. As food began disappearing from the protected gardens, suspicion grew among the village leadership. The king and his council were outraged that someone dared to steal from their private reserves. Guards were posted, but Uzochukwu sharp eyes could spot them from afar, and Okechukwu's acute hearing could detect their movements, allowing the couple to avoid capture. The thefts became the primary topic of discussion at village meetings. Accusations flew between families, and neighbors began to eye each other with suspicion. Yet no one thought to suspect the blind man and his lame wife. After all, how could they possibly manage such feats? After months of failed investigations, the king declared that all villagers must swear an oath before the shrine of Amadioha, the powerful deity of justice. False oaths would result in death, and anyone who raised accusations of theft after swearing would die if they couldn't prove their claims. One by one, villagers approached the shrine, swearing their innocence. Parents brought their children, and elders came leaning on their staff. Each person placed their hand on the sacred shrine and declared they had never stolen from the protected gardens. Finally, it was Okechukwu and Uzochukwu turned to swear. They were brought to the shrine amid whispers of pity. Surely these unfortunate ones couldn't be responsible for the thefts. Okechukwu stepped forward first, his unseeing eyes turned toward the sky. In a clear voice he declared, "Since I was born, if I have ever used my eyes to see the garden of the king or the elders' council, let Amadioha strike me dead." Uzochukwu followed, sitting on the ground before the shrine. With equal conviction, she proclaimed, "Since I was born, if I have ever used my legs to walk into the king's garden or the gardens of the council, let the gods strike me dead." The assembled crowd nodded in satisfaction. Surely these oaths, like all the others, were truthful. How could they not be with such obvious disabilities? 4 market days passed in tense anticipation. Then, mysteriously, members of the king's family began to fall ill. One by one, the council members and their families followed, struck down by an inexplicable malady. Within 2 market weeks, the king and all 20 council members had perished, along with many of their relatives. The village was thrown into chaos. The surviving elders consulted the oracle, who declared that the deaths were divine punishment, but not for theft. Rather, it was punishment for greed and the hoarding of food while others starved. The protected gardens were open to all, and the new leadership established communal farming practices to ensure no one would go hungry again. Through it all, Okechukwu and Uzochukwu lived quietly in their compound, their clever oath having protected them from both human and divine retribution. As the rains finally returned and new crops began to grow, the village of Umuofaya changed. The story of the mysterious thefts and the tragic deaths of the leadership became a cautionary tale, told around evening fires for generations to come. Some said the gods had used the blind man and his lame wife as instruments of justice, though none could prove it. Okechukwu and Uzochukwu continued their simple life together, neither confirming nor denying the whispered speculations. Their marriage, once mocked as a union of misfortunes, became known as a testament to the power of cooperation and clever thinking. Together, they had survived the Great Famine, protected by the literal truth of their words and their complementary abilities. The village learned valuable lessons about compassion, equality, and the danger of greed. The new laws established ensured that no future leader could hoard resources while others suffered. And if anyone noticed that Okechukwu and Uzochukwu seemed less thin than others during the famine, or that their neighbors' children had survived while others starved, they kept such observations to themselves. Word spread among the village children about the kind couple who always had food to share. Every evening, young ones would gather at Okechukwu and Uzochukwu compound to hear stories. Uzochukwu would sit on her special mat, children crowded around her, while Okechukwu wove his baskets nearby. "Tell us again how you met," the children would beg. Uzochukwu would smile, reaching for her husband's hand. "People thought we were unlucky, a blind man and a lame woman, but see how the gods blessed us with so many children to love." The children brought life and laughter to their home. Some would guide Okechukwu to gather materials for his baskets. Others would help Uzochukwu move around the compound. In return, the couple taught them valuable lessons about kindness and helping others. One hot afternoon, old Mama Chioma visited their compound. She was the grandmother whose grandchild they had first helped during the famine. Now very old, she knew she didn't have much time left. "I must tell you something before I join our ancestors," she said, her voice weak but clear. "During the famine, I saw you both one night in the king's garden. I saw how you worked together, one carrying, one seeing. But I kept quiet because I knew you were doing God's work." Uzochukwu and Okechukwu sat in silence, holding hands tightly. "Thank you," Mama Chioma continued, tears in her eyes. "You saved my Chioma. You saved many children. The gods were right to spare you and punish those who let others starve." As years passed, young couples would come to seek their advice. One day, a young man with a clubfoot came with his bride, who was partially deaf. "People say we shouldn't marry," the young man said sadly. "They say we're both broken." Okechukwu laughed softly. "Broken? Look at us. I cannot see. My wife cannot walk, but together we built a life that helped many people. Your differences will make you stronger together, just as ours did." Uzochukwu added, "What others see as weakness can become your greatest strength. He helps me hear what I cannot. You help him move as he needs. That is love." Behind their compound, Okechukwu and Uzochukwu started a small garden. Unlike the selfish gardens of the past, this one was open to all who needed food. Okechukwu worked on the soil with his strong hands, while Uzochukwu directed where each village children helped tend the garden, learning how to grow food and share with others. When visitors asked how they managed such a beautiful garden despite their disabilities, Uzochukwu would smile and say 4 hands are better than 2, and a kind heart makes any work lighter. Many years later, when both Okechukwu and Uzochukwu had grown old, the village faced another challenge, a dispute over land. The new king asked them to help settle it. At the village square, Okechukwu spoke with wisdom gained from years of experience. Let us remember the lesson of the famine. When we share what we have, everyone prospers. When we think only of ourselves, the gods themselves may judge us. The villagers listened carefully. The land dispute was settled fairly, with both families agreeing to share the harvest. In their final years, Okechukwu and Uzochukwu became known as the village's wisest elders. Young and old would seek their counsel. Even people from neighboring villages would come to hear their story. Their small house became a place where anyone could find help. Above their door hung a simple sign that Okechukwu had carved. Here, no one goes hungry. When asked about their long, happy marriage, they would simply say, I am his eyes, he is my legs, and together we are whole. Before they died, they gathered the village children one last time. Uzochukwu told them, remember, little ones, that helping others is the greatest wealth you can have. The gods see everything we do, both good and bad. Okechukwu added, and remember that what seems like a weakness can become a strength. Look at how our disabilities brought us together and helped us save many lives. Years after they were gone, their story was still told in Umuofia and beyond. Parents would point to their old compound and tell their children, that's where the blind man and his lame wife lived. They taught us that true strength comes not from what you have, but from how you help others. Their grave became a place where people would leave small offerings, not out of sadness but in celebration of two people who showed that love, cleverness, and kindness could overcome any obstacle. Thank you for watching. Please help people when they are in need. Remain blessed.